Hey guys, Kiwi here. In this video, I'll be breaking down and analyzing the double episode finale for Season 3 of Fear the Walking Dead. With that being said, a major warning of spoilers and let's jump right into this. Now I'm not going to lie, I'm still a bit shook after viewing this finale. So much intense shit happened and I just want to jump to the case right now and start talking about the first major time bomb of the episode, so once again, major spoilers ahead.
Your mother's in trouble, Nick. Come on.
So, how do I feel about Troy's fate this episode? It was very shocking and quite frankly out of nowhere. I feel like Fear the Walking Dead has been going for a very Game of Thrones type feel during Season 3 as far as killing off characters left and right. Although I do enjoy their intentions, doing this can sometimes really hinder the show if not done correctly. They're doing everything they can this season to shock us and impress us, and one of those things is obviously trying to really bring back the idea of no one ever being safe at any one time. The idea of anyone possibly dying at any time does add some tension into the show, but I feel like they weren't as effective as they could have been. While most character deaths have good meaning to it, a lot of Season 3 deaths were just shocking for the sake of being shocking. Normal character deaths usually have some greater meaning, along with potentially completing the character's story arc or pushing someone else forward. When the main show kills off characters, they're all such big deals and have such huge fan bases that they really have to pick and choose when they're going to kill off certain fan favorites along with why. Now, although Fear the Walking Dead does have some likable characters, the fans are generally nowhere near as attached to them as the main show. This allows for Fear to play with our minds a bit as they whack characters off left and right when we least expect it, such as Travis, Ophelia, and now Troy. So although I don't have an issue with them doing that, I do have an issue with who they choose and why. Although I do give them full props for catching me off guard and causing my jaw to hit the floor, they don't really have as much to go off of now as they could have if they would have done it differently. On top of that, now looking back in hindsight to some of the recent scenes with Troy at the bazaar, it just kinda seems like filler. Now yes, you could argue that it did give Nick and Troy more time to bond as friends, causing the death to become more impactful, but it seems like Troy was just living on borrowed time since the ranch was destroyed. If Madison was just always going to kill him once she found out, all that crap we've seen prior could have been chalked up as filler. And you know, the same could be said about Troy's final few conversations with Madison before Nick ran into there, causing Troy to confess what he did. Troy was obviously trying very hard to butter up Madison in fear of her eventually finding out the truth of what he did. First he mentions how he's looking out for Nick, telling Madison how he's still useful to her. Then he tries getting her to care for him as he tells her that he's thankful for Nick being there for him and that they're such good friends now that he practically considers them brothers.
You know what? I think Nick's my only friend. Like a brother.
That obviously meant nothing to Madison once her anger overtook her, which was what was so scary for Nick in this situation. When Nick ran into that room to get Madison and Troy, he had just temporarily saved Troy's ass by getting himself out of that interrogation with Daniel. Nick, unaware of how long Daniel may or may not believe his lie about blaming Jake, decided to run and grab Troy and get him out of there before Daniel decides to come after him. When Nick raised his eyebrows to get Troy to confess the truth to Madison, he just figured that this was another bump in their relationship. There's no way in hell Nick thought for 1 second that Madison would react the way that she did, but we'll get to that later. Right now, I wanted to discuss Troy's side of the situation, along with what might have been going through his head during his own final moments. Troy was doing nothing wrong this episode and was in fact trying to redeem himself quite a bit. He never needed to snoop around the Proctors, but he did, and he ended up finding out intel about an attack on the dam. Knowing Madison was in danger, he took this information to Nick and insisted that they go help. Troy was the one who wanted to help, and help he did. He brought the info of the Proctor's attack to Daniel and Madison, along with suggesting to stay and help out. Troy really respected Madison for everything she's done for him, and I can really sense that he was trying to prove himself to her. After everything that's happened between them, Troy trusted Madison and she ended up betraying him. After the first swing, he realized that she was killing him and he just sort of let her continue. During Choi's final moments, you see nothing other than pure betrayal in his eyes, and he seems completely heartbroken that he's being murdered by his own new mother figure. Well, it never became official, but that's pretty much what he saw her as, right? I thought that they were going to set up Choi as a main character in season 4, and I was very interested in seeing his potential storylines outside of the ranch. The ranch was Choi's main home base. He was top shit there, the people loved him and he had a lot of authority, but outside of the ranch, he's shy and antisocial. This all makes sense too because he was pulled out of school and kept at home. He never went out and partied like Nick did, he never had any friend groups or social circles, and that really showed during the few episodes that Nick and Choi were at the bazaar together. I would have liked to see a lot more out of Choi's character, and I feel like a lot of people feel the same way. Choi had a ton of potential, but it's all wasted now that Madison whacked him with a hammer. So speaking of that, if they were going to have Madison kill Choi right then and there, it must have been with good reason. So what were the show creators thinking here? Well, there's multiple perspectives. For one, it could have simply just been the final straw for Madison. She's given Choi slack for everything he's done all season, even going as far as to motivate him as well. Now, in the season 3 double finale, they really tried to drill home the fact that Madison adored the idea of living happily ever after at the ranch. First, they have the conversation with Strand and Madison at the beginning of 315 about Christmas and making turkey dinner or whatever, along with the multiple dream sequences where Madison's imagining horrifying alternate realities where she prepares the Christmas dinner that she never had. If Madison cared so much about wanting to make the ranch their special home, I feel like we should have been shown that better throughout the season so we would have cared more by the time it happened instead of them having to tell us. Yes, Madison said multiple times throughout season 3 that she wanted the ranch to be the place that they settled down at, but she said that about places before. Just think back to the hotel in season 2 and how badly Madison wanted to try and make it work. Even though there was nothing particularly special about the hotel that made it stand out from any other. She just waltzed into a semi-safe place with characters that have existing internal drama, and then the same thing happened again at the ranch this season. Anyways, circling back to Madison completely snapping and murdering Choi out of sheer anger, how does that affect her relationship with Nick? While in the past Nick has always told Madison that he has her back even if she plans to do something horrible, this may have completely crossed the line. Nick froze in shock while Madison struck Choi down, and just the look in his eyes seems like the realization that he cannot trust his mother any longer. Nick thought that Madison considered Choi an exception as well. Nick wouldn't have run in there saying that shit, getting Choi to confess, if he actually thought for a second that Madison would kill Choi over it. He ran in there concerned that Daniel was gonna kill Choi because of the truth. He wasn't concerned about Madison, and that's what made this so surprising and so shocking. How could you possibly trust someone on your team when they figure that they can be judge, jury, and executioner? Choi has done so much shit that has deemed him worthy of stepping up to the chopping block, but only now Madison finds it suitable to put him down instead of giving him some slack. Nick calls her out later on while they're alone in that room together, and you can just tell that he sees her in a completely different light now that she's killed Choi. Nick considers himself similar to Choi, as he's compared himself to Choi many times in the past. Now, Choi's been touched in the head ever since he was a child, and although Nick doesn't share that same quality, he still relates to Choi and thought that Madison would respect their friendship. After everything the three of them have been through, and after everything Madison has let Choi get away with, this was her snapping point? Really? Well, if I can say one thing for certain, this event was definitely to show how bad of a person Madison has actually become. She was just completely in the wrong here. She snapped and she murdered someone. There are a lot of people who probably wanted to murder Choi. Yeah, Choi has had it coming for a long time. He's been an asshole since the first episode he was introduced in. I'm not saying that he didn't deserve it or anything, I'm just saying the way that he went out was so uncalled for and just so offsetting, the way that Madison figured that she could just decide that right then and there, to put him down like a dog. She's become too quick to pull the trigger, so to speak, and hopefully she'll learn to dial that back a bit going forward, or we'll have a serious issue with Madison's ability to be trusted. Nick was right to call her the dangerous one, and if she doesn't smarten up and acknowledge that what she did was wrong and try and change the path that she's walking in, she may just turn into some horrific villain. Now let's go ahead and move on to the second major topic of conversation in this finale, which would have to be Strand versus Daniel. Now, in an alternate universe, I do imagine a version of these two characters where everything is about the same except they've worked out all of their stupid little problems. This is not the case, as they have seemed to worsen their relationship with every interaction that they have on screen. Not only do Strand and Daniel never make up from previous confrontations, they just continuously push each other's buttons. Now, these are two characters that I wish would just get along together because I love both of them individually and I feel like they'd be a good team together. But of course, this show has some sort of hard-on for internal conflict, so these two characters must be pinned against each other one way or another. Now, as far as this episode goes, I was still in freaking shock from the whole Madison Choi thing, and then they have Strand shoot Daniel in the damn face. Damn, Daniel, that's definitely something the show did on purpose. There was only one scene between the Troy Madison scene and the Strand Daniel scene. They wanted us to get shocked from watching them kill off one main character and then instantly jump to what looks like another one being killed because then we're more likely to believe it. If they just killed off Troy, who's to say that they won't instantly kill off Strand or Daniel as well? That one thing actually gave more attention to this whole struggle between Daniel and Strand that would have actually otherwise been there. And I know this because I knew that this struggle between them was going to happen. We all saw it in the damn teaser trailer for this episode that was released last week. Now with that being said, it was still a crazy epic scene, although the Daniel fake out does seem a bit cheap now looking back on it in hindsight. And I will admit, I did believe that Strand straight up shot Daniel there for a moment, and I was in denial. I just couldn't believe it, and it wasn't until the camera was held on Daniel's body for just a second longer than usual that I assumed that he was alive. I've heard of situations where people have attempted suicide by gunshot, but failed due to shooting themselves upwards through the jaw like that, resulting in them surviving, so it was very interesting to incorporate that kind of fake out into the show. And as far as the acting goes, it was just amazing. I love Coleman Domingo as Strand, and he really did a great job in this scene, along with the double episode finale in general. And I'm not forgetting Ruben Blades as Daniel either. He's an amazing actor as well, and the chemistry between these two characters is just so intriguing, and I feel like the show creators realized that, and that's why they keep putting these two characters against each other. I think that these episodes are really going to stick out as one of the major points of Strand's evolution as a person, so much that I believe the character could even call for his own standalone discussion video as well, just based off of this. But after Daniel runs off with Lola, they end up trying to escape through the tunnels, and this is where the plan becomes illogical. After getting Daniel to safety down a ladder, Lola then decides to climb back up and go look for Ephraim. Sure, it can be hard to admit that he's probably dead, so I get that you don't want to leave him behind, but you already did. Daniel and Lola started escaping the moment that the Proctors got there and started firing off shots, so they should be well aware that they're being attacked and probably losing. Ephraim is probably dead, and going back for him when you haven't even seen him since before the attack started has to be about the stupidest thing that she could have done. Also, don't you think that leaving Daniel alone in general has to be a bad idea? From the second that I saw her leave him, I was like, oh no, he's gonna die alone, and we're just gonna end up seeing a Daniel zombie walking around or something. Forget Lola's reasoning to go back, the fact that she left Daniel at all is ridiculous. And speaking of Daniel, how serious even was his injury? The more time went on, the less serious it seems to be. Now I know that you can get stabbed through the cheek and survive, but I figured that being shot upwards through the jaw might add some complications. After Strand shoots him, he wanders off as if he's going to bleed out and die unless he gets medical attention. We did see Daniel putting some pressure on the wound, but having him spring back into action when he was originally acting like a scared neutered dog was just such a weird 180. Like, okay, I get that Daniel is a badass assassin originally evolved with the CIA that probably has a pretty decent pain tolerance, but if that's the case, why have him act so wimpy in the first place? Now, if you get shot in the face, you definitely have the right to be scared and shocked, but if he was fine, he should have acted like that after he left the room with Strand in it. It wasn't until after Lola left and was gunned down that Daniel got up and started acting fine again. And now before we discuss the big boom that ended off the finale, let's go ahead and quickly address some minor topics that I wanted to point out. First off, what happened to Diana, that chick that Alicia was with? After watching her get her leg worked on, I assumed that she was just left in the bazaar to heal, but we never see her again after that. Also, this whole Alicia Proctor John thing seemed to have moved far too fast, and as a matter of fact, the entire damn storyline seemed to move to a quick finish at the end of the season as well, which probably had something to do with the showrunner switch going on into season 4. If you aren't already aware, the current executive producer of the show, Dave Erickson, will actually be leaving the show now that season 3 is finished in order to work on some new project with AMC or something. Since he's leaving, they're now apparently bringing in 2 new showrunners to handle things, along with bringing in Scott M. Gimple as a new executive producer as well. Since this is the case, I feel like Dave Erickson rushed his story to completion in order to leave season 4 a clean slate for the new crew. Now, if Dave Erickson would have continued as showrunner for season 4, I think we may have seen the damn storyline stretched out a lot more, similar to the hotel location back in season 2. I imagine that the bazaar and the damn locations would have become a big back and forth situation like the Colonia and the hotel in season 2B, but due to Dave Erickson walking towards the exit doors, they decided to speed everything up, kill a bunch of people off, and blow some shit up, literally washing the slate clean for next year's season, whichever direction they decide to take it. Speaking of things being a bit rushed, let's briefly discuss this newfound partnership between Alicia and Proctor John. Although I think they did a good job initializing it and making it come to fruition, it did feel a bit rushed. What could have probably been a 3 to 4 episode plot was instead squished in there for 2, as we never even saw the reveal of Proctor John until this double finale. So I understand how Alicia ended up in this situation, but that doesn't necessarily explain the Proctor's likeness of her. Doesn't it seem a bit forced? Like, okay, I can assume that he probably doesn't see that many cheery, preppy people in his life, but does that really give him a good enough reason to hold Alicia above everyone else? This just pretty much feels like when Arya was Tywin's cupbearer in Game of Thrones, except this is extremely brief and not as exciting because this Proctor John character hasn't been built up at all. Another thing that felt rushed was the whole surgery process between him and Alicia. When they revealed the whole back surgery thing with Benjamin Linus in the TV show Lost, it was a huge, intense situation that lasted over the span of multiple episodes, but here we just kind of have some slight tension until the Proctor John wiggles his toes, and then everything's all good. Speaking of which, I get that Proctor John is some badass who's become jaded to the world, including pain apparently, but the damn guy just had a tumor removed out of his back. I don't care what anyone says, he should not be walking around the top of the dam like some badass. Now with that out of the way, let's go ahead and continue on to the main final showdown of the episode, resulting in a huge explosion with a very open ending. So first off, Proctor John catches everyone and brings them to his office. He then decides to kill Nick because of him being involved with Troy ratting out their plan to Madison, but it's not like Troy was ever involved with the Proctors prior. If Troy was straight up involved with the Proctors and then decided to betray them, then yeah, I would completely understand. But at the beginning of 315, all Troy did was walk up to one of the Proctors and then the camera cut away. We never even fully saw the conversation between Troy and this Proctor, but I assume that it was short and brief. Within a short yet brief conversation, Troy apparently learned that they were planning on attacking the dam, so he puts 2 and 2 together, realizing that the dam is probably Daniel's dam, so he goes to warn Nick so they can go and tell Madison. I assume that Troy didn't manipulate this guy or do anything special to receive this information, or else we would have seen it. If it was worth showing, they would have showed it, right? So, was Troy really to blame here? I personally believe that Proctor John should have straightened out his blabbermouth crew, but I digress. Proctor John brings them to the top of the dam for execution, although I'm unsure why he chose it there in particular. Everyone starts giving their half-assed goodbyes, and Nick pickpockets the detonation switch from Strand, mirroring the way back in season 1 when Nick originally pickpocketed Strand's keys from him. So while Strand starts building up to this detonator, he starts freaking out when he realizes that it's not in his coat pocket anymore. Nick reveals that he's in possession of it and thereby grants Alicia, Madison, and Strand free passage off the dam. Now, something that I don't understand here is why Nick told them to go onto the boat. By going onto the boat and trying to drive upstream, they've now put themselves within the danger range of the dam's explosion. Granted, Nick probably just didn't think about that like Proctor John says to him, but still, that's not something that he should have overlooked.
A quandary. You blow the dam too soon, your family won't make it. Didn't consider that quite, did you? Into the road, Nick. Give me that device.
They could have probably taken vehicles and driven away, they could have taken the sewer tunnels out and ran away, or hell, they could have just ran away in any direction that is away from the dam in the C4. So as Daniel finds Lola's dead body, there's a note written on her in Spanish that actually translates to Water Queen. He pays his respects to her and then wanders on to finding anyone else remaining. And again, if he could walk this fine and act this calm the whole time, why did he stay alone in that sewer tunnel while Lola went back alone? Why did he even let her leave? So after Crazy Dog reappears with Taka to take some sniper shots at the Proctors, Nick still ends up flipping the switch, causing the dam to blow up finally and cause everything to go to shit even more than it already has. Proctor John has just apparently lost all interest in killing Nick as he just walks off with the help of one of his henchmen, so what's the deal here? Well, the dam was falling apart, so I suppose that they just wanted to try and escape alive, and considering that they didn't know whether or not the sniper was still there, they didn't want to attempt shooting Nick again, but they could have easily shot up Nick on the way out before Daniel arrived alongside him. So with Madison, Alicia, and Strand all getting sucked into the current, along with Nick, Daniel, and Proctor John supposedly still standing on top of the dam as it collapsed, what happened to everyone? Is Nick dead? Did everyone drown? Well, to answer that question, I direct you to this very informative clip from the Talking Dead Aftershow for this episode.
Oh, and then also, everyone wants to know where everyone is. And we don't know. They haven't made it yet. I don't know. Auntie's the Realist says, Chris, where's my Alicia? I don't know. Where's Nick? I don't know. Where's everyone else? I don't know. We literally don't know.
But in all seriousness, they did this because of the switch in showrunners between seasons. The previous showrunner, Dave Erickson, didn't want to leave a story half-finished for the new showrunners to take over, so what better way to leave a blank slate than to blow everything up, kill a ton of people off, and leave the fate of everyone else ambiguous. They wanted the show to be wiped clean with the ability to do a complete rebirth if necessary, so definitely expect a change in direction of some sort for Season 4. I assume that Season 4 will probably include this supposed crossover that Robert Kirkman and everyone else on the Walking Dead team has been teasing since the New York Comic Con this year, or at least set up for it in some way, shape, or form. And for anyone who's worried about Strand, Alicia, Daniel, or Nick being dead, don't. There's no way in hell they'd just kill off someone like that off screen and expect us to be okay with it. As it stands right now, I don't even think the show creators know the condition that the characters are in. It's up to the new showrunners to really play with that idea, and that's why the slate was wiped as clean as possible for them to literally do whatever they want with it. Maybe Nick and Daniel got away in time, or maybe they didn't. Maybe they could be injured in some way, like having a limb broken or crushed in a fall somehow. It's possible for Strand or Alicia to wash up alongside Madison, but it's also possible for them to wash up somewhere else on their own. My point is that the fate of these characters weren't predetermined as this finale was written. However the show creators decide to split up the characters for the beginning of Season 4, it will be the base of wherever they want to take the show. Maybe we'll have them find a new group of characters, maybe we'll have them travel somewhere, I don't know. Something that I would like to find interesting would be to have an entire episode that is just mainly focused on Madison alone, trying to survive after getting washed up. It doesn't have to be a bottle episode, so we could hypothetically still find out the fates of other characters in the Season 4 premiere as well, but I just think that it'd be really fun to watch what Madison would do alone to survive, or who she'd run into now that she's pretty much just been washed clean. This is what I mean by rebirth. Madison could just go in a completely different direction now that she's all alone and has nothing to her name. When Season 4 starts up, I'm guessing that we'll be introduced to the characters one by one, getting reacquainted with where they are and the condition they're in, so again we'll just have to wait and see where everyone gets washed up and who they end up with. Well, what did you guys think of the Season 3 finale for Fear the Walking Dead? Definitely leave your own opinions of this down in the comments, along with any predictions you may have for Season 4. If I get a bunch of discussion for Fear the Walking Dead, I will continue with more videos in the future, so let me know if you have any crazy fan theories or requests. With that being said, now that Season 8 of the regular Walking Dead is right around the corner, most of my attention will now be focused on that, with some Better Call Saul videos here and there. I'd appreciate a like on the video if you've enjoyed anything I've said today, or even subscribe for more Walking Dead content in the near future. Now, although I love creating content like this, making these videos can be very time consuming. I'm constantly working on ways to improve the quality of content being produced on this channel, such as audio quality, along with the editing process. Although my passion to increase quality does fuel my motives, the adpocalypse on YouTube really hasn't been doing me any favors, so if you'd like to take that extra step in helping support my videos, check out my Patreon where there's a bunch of different rewards involving the channel, such as the chance to directly influence the videos being produced. It isn't necessary by any means, but it can really help in the long run. But as always, I thank you all so much for watching, and until next time, I'll talk to you guys later. Peace out.
Come on, it's lovely weather for a sleigh ride together with you. Outside the snow is falling and friends are calling you. Come on, it's lovely weather for a sleigh ride together with you. Giddy up, giddy up, giddy up, let's go. Let's look at the show. We're riding in a wonderland of snow.